Hello and welcome to BQ Prime. I'm your host Vikas Srivastava. Today we have with us Simarpreet Singh. He is the Executive Director of Hartek Solar, a company that is primarily into rooftop solar segment. They are both into residential as well as commercial and industrial sector. Mr. Singh will talk to us about the current status of rooftop solar segment in the country. Also, what are the basic reasons why the segment has picked up so well
Executive
as
Director of Hartek
on par
Solar,
with other
a
segments
company that
in
is
the solar
primarily
sector, and also about the company's future growth plans. Welcome to BQ Prime, Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Vikasi, for having me, and thank you to all the
A
viewers
company
for
that is
joining
primarily
in.
into rooftop
Yeah.
solar segment. Basically, I wanted to know, as I said, what could be the reasons for the rooftop solar segment not to really pick up or do as well as other major segments like utility scale
solar
projects have done in the country. So, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. Sir, before we dive into the rooftop segment, I'll just take a couple of seconds to really explain what Hartek has been doing since last 3 decades. Just a quick overview. So Hartek today, we are divided into 4 business units. One of the businesses is into transmission distribution. We're among the top 10 EPC companies in the country, building grid infrastructure for the future. The second is the renewables business, which we started almost 10 years back, both into utility scale as well as rooftop. We really kicked in by founding a separate company by the name of Hartek Solar in the year 2015, and today we stand among the top 3 in the country in the renewable space. And the third business is into power distribution products business, which is more of a manufacturing business, giving power solutions to industries, power plants, and both our factories are based out in Mohali. And the last business is which fundamentally works around building smart cities and smart grid infrastructure for the future. आपने जैसे बात की about the rooftop segment, because we've been very fortunate to be very, having a very early mover advantage, right? We were part of the very first rooftop solar, which was set up on Mr. Narendra Modi ji's secretariat when he was the CM of Gujarat. That is back in 2012. So we've seen the transition. I still remember, it's a very funny incident I want to share, Vikazi, with you. When we started solar and 2012 की बात है विकास, people solar panels को प्लेटें बोलते होते थे कि प्लेटों को नीचे से ऊपर लेके चले जाओ. We've seen those time, and today proudly we can say we've done close to 5 gigawatt of solar grid connectivity through our power system business. And so we've seen that time, we've seen the transition where the customer was not convinced, like customer को idea नहीं समझ आता था, right? कि जब हम 2014-15 में solar panels की बात करते थे, the customer would say, but natural, right? Because any industry which is going to build the first 3-4 years is really about customer awareness and things like that. But having said that, we've seen that time that where customer was so obsessed and वो बोलते थे कि यार ये तो हमारी छत खराब हो जाएगी, and things would happen. So we've seen that time, and today I'm very proud where our country stands in terms of solar, both rooftop, both the utility scale, and we are really leading the energy transition towards net zero and renewables. Coming to the point, because if we see Hartek Solar, fundamentally our majority of our business comes through industries, right? Commercial industry buildings where we partner with them for the sustainability goals. And to be very honest, with Hartek, we've seen a tremendous growth happen since the last 2-3 years. In fact, right? A lot of these industries अभी तो mandatory कर दिया है SEBI ने भी, right, कि 1000 crore के ऊपर अगर companies होंगे उनको ESG filing भी mandate कर दिया है. So we see a lot of huge understanding in the commercial and the industrial segment, where जो on-site Capex projects ला रहे हैं, there's a huge awareness also. But I think, just adding to that, I feel that policy regulation जो change होती रही है, थोड़ी बहुत policy में instability रहा है. उसके कारण there have been certain projects or certain customers which have not completely given into that, right? Whether it was the ALMM extension or उससे पहले net metering था, 2-3 बार हुआ. But I think it is just a matter of time. I think the government was also, I think India, in fact, across the country, across the world, if you see, India is today a leader in renewable energy and net zero. I think sustainability की बात सबसे ज़्यादा हम लोग कर रहे हैं, और ground level पे execution भी हमारा देश कर रहा है. So I think in the past couple of years जो policy थोड़ी बहुत जो change हुई है, उससे थोड़ा बहुत कई customers जो SME segment है, right, जिसको हम बात करते हैं, वो थोड़ा बहुत थोड़ा डिस्करेज जरूर हुआ है, बट आई सी दिस चेंजिंग बिकॉज द अवेयरनेस इज सो हाई टुडे. एवरीबडी वांट्स टू सेव इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल एंड मोर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल से ज्यादा विकास जी क्या हो रहा है, majority of our customers, I can give you data with Hartek, right? 80% of the customers today, when they come to us, they ask that what is the carbon emission that they're saving, right? What is the sustainability angle that they're saving? So I think going forward, this will change, and I think we from Hartek also, and as an industry, we are very bullish that this will further, accelerate, and the momentum will further increase as we move ahead.
Right. So do you think that, as you also mentioned, policy changes and issues like net metering. So do you think now most of the states have really allowed net metering or open access, which may help rooftop solar segment to pick up going ahead?
Right. So, sir, rooftop solar today, when we see the C&I segment, there are basically two types of verticals that have been set up. One is the on-site Capex model, where fundamentally the industry or the commercial building invites companies like us and the other leaders to install solar panels on their roof. That is the on-site Capex model. And the second is the open access, right? Fundamentally, where all these industries and commercial buildings buy power through some other state and through an open access model, which they do. We focus rightly, our focus is more on the on-site Capex model, and we see a huge, in fact, we see a lot of strong momentum going forward across the country for the on-site model. Having said that, the net metering which you're talking about, Vikasji, there is a capping that's been set up, right? I think 500 kilowatt is the capping that was set up. So what it does for the larger factories, for the larger buildings, they don't go with net metering at all, because their connected load is close to 20-30 megawatt, and they're putting about 4-5 megawatt only on the roof. So majority of them which we are doing is captive consumption projects that we're doing, and we see that actually is growing year on year. Not only year on year, in fact, we are closing our Q1 for this financial year. In fact, there are more inquiries, more number of order books that we have done. So I see the captive consumption growing, and I'm definitely, because open access is a great model, and I think that also in the coming years and coming months, the only challenge which I see with open access is the quality of power plants and the commitment of that PPA. That is something that we can talk maybe separately after that. But I feel that is where the C&I customers are really worried about the open access, that how आपने PPA तो कर लिया, but आपका power plant भी ready होना चाहिए. So that is where some customers are a little skeptical, and as a result, they go with the on-site Capex model, solar first, and they get a flavor of renewable energy and things like that. So we are personally very bullish going forward.
So how much has been the impact of this higher import duty on your projects? Especially a lot of industry, they had been clamoring for reduction in this duty. So do you think that going ahead, government may look at reducing it to say 20% or something like that?
Right. Sir, impact initially there was certain kind of impact which was there. I think the first 3-4 months were really went down. In fact, a lot of the projects that we had bagged in February last year also, उनकी execution तो April में हुई थी, and we उसका भी थोड़ा नुकसान हुआ, because duty, the customer is not ready to pay that duty and all that. But I think the first quarter was tough. If I ask, Q1 last year, Q1 was really tough. Around this time, there was a lot of convincing happening and things like that. But initially, because today, and you've been a great follower of the power sector since many years, and you would also know that today the whole story has been sold of renewable energy. Today, there is no convincing that happens. Today, people are very conscious about their sustainability, carbon footprint. They're very conscious about giving back to the ecosystem. So today, initially the Q1 का impact था, but the customers realize that कि payback 3 साल नहीं आएगा तो 3.5 साल हो जाएगा, right? तो 3.5 साल नहीं होगा, 4 साल नहीं हो जाएगा. ऐसा नहीं है कि 3 साल से 10 साल तो हुआ नहीं payback, right? So that is the impact, and plus they also really appreciate the quality of solar panels that's been manufactured. So the impact was initially there. I would say impact was really in understanding what has happened, and then from Q2 last year, I think things really did speed up, and I think that really reflected in our projects that we bagged across the country.
But you also said that you are there in renewable segment also. So being in the renewable segment, do you think that the impact would have been higher compared to what you do
Yes.
in the rooftop segment?
Absolutely, sir. So Hartek Power, which is our transmission distribution company, where we work with a lot of developers for their BOS packages, because we are an expert in the transmission distribution segment, right? Regardless of the source of power, right? The grid infrastructure has to be set up, whether it is a solar, wind, biomass, and we've been doing since last 30 years. And we today, with the kind of love and affection by our customers, we're today a market leader in that segment. And of course, for sure, in that IPP customer segment, there was a lot of impact, and which actually showed in the numbers also. A lot of projects were delayed. The IPPs were not ready to execute the projects, because when we're talking about a 100 megawatt or a 200 megawatt project vis-a-vis a 5 megawatt project, a rooftop is setting, the scale is completely different. So of course, and as a result also, a lot of these projects were delayed. And a good move for the developers that the LMM extension happened. And let's see this year how much 15, do we cross the magic number of 20 gigawatt this year or not? Let's see, time will tell.
Right. And can you talk about which are the major projects? Because I heard that you have also done this Amritsar Golden Temple and a few other, important projects. So which are the major
Right.
projects that you're working right now? And
Right.
going ahead, what is the kind of potential that we have?
Sure. So, sir, Hartek Solar, I don't call the solar installed at Golden Temple as a project. It was, I think, the biggest honor we could ever get. I think to install solar on Shri Harbandar Sahib, Amritsar, which is where we all come from. It is one of the holiest place for us and across the world, in fact. So it was, hamare liye toh, it was a very emotional moment when we got this opportunity. It was roughly about 1.2 megawatt spread over 3 Gurdwara Sahib. So it was a great opportunity, and I think what I'll just take 30 seconds on that project, because it created a lot of impact. When we say impact, is that when we talk about religious institutes like Gurdwara, Mandir, Masjid, या church की भी बात करते हैं, यहाँ इतने लोग आते हैं, right? The level of awareness and इनका compound होता है, right? So the kind of awareness that we could create installing solar at Shri Harbandar Sahib was, I think, a once a life opportunity, and we're very, very grateful to United Sikh Mission, in fact, giving us this opportunity to do that. So of course, that is hamare liye toh, if you visit our headquarters here in Hartek Towers, you will see that we've put a huge banner getting that honor. So it was a very emotional moment for us, in fact, for the entire team at Hartek to do that project. Apart from that, there are a lot of projects for a lot of large industries like steel, textile. We recently did Bikaji Foods. Bikaji is one of the largest bhujia banate hain. So unka humne Bikaner mein 2 phases mein, one we installed 2 megawatt, and another project another 2 megawatt we've bagged recently. Apart from that, there are a lot of steel customers, large steel customers that we are doing those projects. We recently did projects for Coca-Cola. It was about 5 megawatt plus. Their bottling units, Kandhari Beverages is their official bottling unit. So we solarized their 3 plants, one in Jammu, Haryana, and Punjab. So it was a great opportunity to do that. And many other projects that's going on. We also recently inaugurated, in fact, completed North India's largest floating solar, which was 2 megawatt here in Chandigarh, which was actually the foundation stone was laid by the Honorable President of India, Madam. And we completed in December last year. And March, we bagged another project of 22 megawatt by SG Green. That's also, once that would be installed, it would be the largest floating of the region, Punjab, Haryana, Himachal region. So that is the ongoing projects that's going on. Very excited for the 22 megawatt floating solar. We tend to complete the project before March 2024.
Okay, great. And this rooftop solar, in fact, is going to be a major component even for our 2030, 500 gigawatt target. So do you think that we will be able to achieve going ahead, given the kind of pace or the growth that we have, not just in rooftop, but even being an industry expert, if you can say, whether we will be able to meet that overall target that we have set for ourselves?
Sir, yeah, एक गलत question, गलत बंदे को पूछ रहे हो. I've always been very, very optimistic. It's been almost 12 years in the industry. When I started Hartek Solar, as a young engineer, I've always remained very, very optimistic about India. let aside the renewable energy for a second, but I think I believe in India. I genuinely feel the next 25 years is ours. In fact, the next 50 years is ours. I think the rate at which India is going to grow is going to be phenomenal. And at India 2047, I keep saying in all the interviews that I see India at 2047 one of the most developed and one of the most prosperous and happiest countries globally, in fact. As far as renewable energy is concerned, the energy transition is concerned, the net zero is concerned, I think we've been a leader. And I want to put out there that no matter whatever the world talks about climate change and renewable energy, I think we have really walked the talk across every year, in fact. So I am a very optimistic person. I've always been. In fact, 2014 में भी जब goal था, if you see, 2012 was a separate goal. NSM का goal different था, it was 20 gigawatt. And then it was revised in 2014, 15. मैंने हर interview में बोला है that it is achievable. होगा as an industry, if we all come together as an ecosystem, that will definitely achieve. 500 gigawatt का अगर 400 gigawatt भी होता है, it's big number we're talking, sir. These are not small numbers, and I think my best wishes and kudos to the developers, the investors, the EPCs, the module manufacturers, the entire ecosystem that has come together and really contributing towards nation building and building a sustainable future for the times to come.
Right. One last question on, because I think you have to leave also. One last question on of your total projects. What is the CNI and residential mix that you have, and would you continue to have the same, or would you like to change?
Right. So, sir, currently Hartek Solar focuses on the solar EPC business. So, Hartek Power, as I explained you and the viewers, Hartek Power focuses on more of power systems, transmission, distribution projects for even solar projects also. But Hartek Solar is the company that focuses on solar EPC, floating solar, and all that. So, C&I is roughly about 90%, I would say. C&I will continue to lead because we get a lot of scale in that also. Because the economies of scale is same almost, right? The supply chain is same, whether you put up a 100 kilowatt or a 10 kilowatt plant or a 5 or a 10 megawatt plant, right? The supply chain is same, the scale changes. So I think the 90 to 95% the industries and the utilities lead for Hartek Solar, and the balance comes from residential and small scale projects. Going forward, sir, as you asked, we will continue to focus on the industry, the commercial on-site Capex model, where we'll really partner with a lot of industries, buildings for the sustainability goals. But having said that, our entrant into floating solar, and if you would have definitely researched, and we are among right now the leaders in the floating solar space, right? With 2 megawatt and 22 megawatt in pipeline. We've also bid a lot of projects in the floating space. So I feel that our vision is very clear that we tend to also build a lot of expertise in the floating solar space going forward, because it's a very specialized engineering field, and I feel that we at Hartek can really become a leader going forward.
Yeah. So in terms of revenue contribution, what could be the breakup of, say, T&D and renewables as well as your solar business?
Sir, I would numbers right now we're not sharing because there are certain we'll definitely share maybe offline with you later on. But just clarifying that. So majority, roughly about 50 to 60% business, the revenue share is of our substation business, power system business, where we work with utilities, where we work with large industries, where we work with a lot of IPPs to build their grid infrastructure. So about 60% to 65% revenue contribution comes from that. The balance comes to 30%, roughly about 20 to 25% comes from the solar EPC business, and the balance comes from our manufacturing business. And we'll definitely share some detailed numbers also with you separately after that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks. It was our pleasure talking.